how the great flood changed the world and how Noah's children began to spread across the earth. All people spoke one language then, and they were united as one family descended from Noah. But soon this unity would face a great test at a place called Babel. This next part of Genesis tells us how God's plan continued through one special family line. From all the descendants of Noah, God chose a man named Abram, later called Abraham, to start a new chapter in the story. Through Abram's journey of faith, we'll see how God begins to build a special relationship with one family that will eventually bless all families of the earth. Let's begin with the story of a city and a tower where human pride led to an important change in how people lived and spoke. Genesis chapter 11. Everyone on earth spoke the same language and used the same words. As people moved east, they found a flat valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them until they're hard." They used bricks instead of stone and tar instead of mortar. Then they said, "Let's build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the sky. We'll become famous and stay together instead of spreading across the earth." But God came down to see the city and tower the people were building. God said, "Look, these people are united and all speak one language. This is just the beginning of what they'll do. Soon they'll be able to do anything they imagine. Come, let's go down and give them different languages so they won't understand each other." So God scattered them across the earth, and they stopped building the city. That's why the city was called Babel, because there God mixed up the language of the whole world. From there, God scattered people everywhere across the earth. This is the story of Shem's family. 2 years after the flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he had a son named Arphaxad. After that, Shem lived 500 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Arphaxad was 35, he had a son named Shelah. After that, Arphaxad lived 403 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30, he had a son named Eber. After that, Shelah lived 403 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber was 34, he had a son named Peleg. After that, Eber lived 430 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30, he had a son named Reu. After that, Peleg lived 209 years and had other sons and daughters. When Reu was 32, he had a son named Serug. After that, he lived 207 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30, he had a son named Nahor. After that, Serug lived 200 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29, he had a son named Terah. After that, Nahor lived 119 more years and had other sons and daughters. When Terah was 70, he had 3 sons, Abram, Nahor, and Haran. This is the story of Terah's family. Terah was the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran was the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, where he was born. Abram and Nahor both married. Abram's wife was named Sarai, and Nahor's wife was named Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, who was also the father of Iscah. Sarai was not able to have children. Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, Haran's son, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, Abram's wife, from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. But when they reached the city of Haran, they settled there instead. Terah lived to be 205 years old and died in Haran. Genesis chapter 12. God spoke to Abram, saying, "Leave your country, your relatives, and your father's home. Go to a land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make your name well known. You will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you, and I will bring consequences to those who treat you badly. Through you, all families on earth will be blessed. So Abram obeyed God and left, just as he was told. Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all their belongings, and the people who had joined them in Haran. They set out for the land of Canaan, and eventually they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land until he reached the great tree of Moreh and Shechem. At that time, the Canaanite people were living in the land. God appeared to Abram and said, I will give this land to your children. There, Abram built an altar to honor God who had appeared to him. From there, he moved to the hills east of Bethel and set up his tent. Bethel was to the west and Ai to the east. He built another altar there and worshipped God. Then Abram continued traveling toward the southern part of Canaan. But a severe food shortage hit the land. Abram went to Egypt to live there for a while because the shortage was so bad. As they were about to enter Egypt, Abram said to his wife Sarai, I know that you are a beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. They might kill me to take you, but let you live. Please tell them you are my sister. Then they will treat me well because of you, and my life will be spared. When Abram arrived in Egypt, the Egyptians noticed how beautiful Sarai was. Pharaoh's officials saw her and praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken to his palace. Pharaoh treated Abram well because of her, giving him sheep, cattle, donkeys, servants, and camels. But God sent serious troubles on Pharaoh and his household because he had taken Abram's wife Sarai. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she was your sister? I might have married her. Here is your wife. Take her and go. Then Pharaoh ordered his men to send Abram away with his wife and everything he owned. Genesis chapter 13. Abram left Egypt and traveled to the southern part of Canaan with his wife, all his belongings, and Lot. By this time, Abram had become very wealthy with many animals, silver and gold. He traveled from place to place until he returned to Bethel, where he had camped before, between Bethel and Ai. This was where he had built his first altar, and there Abram worshipped God again. Lot, who traveled with Abram, also had many flocks, herds, and tents. The land couldn't support both Abram and Lot living together because they had so many animals and possessions. Arguments broke out between Abram's herders and Lot's herders. At this time, the Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land. Abram said to Lot, Please, let's not have any quarreling between us or our herders. After all, we're family. Look at all the land before us. Let's separate. If you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left. Lot looked around and saw that the Jordan Valley was well watered, like God's garden, or like Egypt. This was before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. The valley stretched all the way to Zoar, so Lot chose the whole Jordan Valley for himself and moved east. This is how Abram and Lot separated. Abram stayed in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the valley, setting up his tents near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were very wicked and sinned against God. After Lot left, God said to him, Look around from where you are. Look north, south, east, and west. All the land you see I will give to you and your children forever. I will make your family as numerous as the dust of the earth. If anyone they could count your descendants. Go, walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you." So Abram moved his tents and went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron. There he built another altar to worship God. Genesis chapter 14. During this time, 4 kings joined forces: Amraphel, king of Shinar; Arioch, king of Elasar; Chedorlaomer, king of Elam; and Tidal, king of Goyim. These 4 kings went to war against 4 kings: Bera, king of Sodom; Persia, king of Gomorrah; Shinab, king of Admah; Shemeber, king of Zeboim; and the king of Bela, also called Zoar. The 5 kings came together in the valley of Siddim, which is now the Dead Sea. For 12 years they had served King Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and his allies came and defeated many peoples in many places: the Rephites, the Zuzites, the Hamites, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, all the way to El-Paran near the desert. Then they turned back, came to En-Mishpat, also called Kadesh, and conquered the lands of the Amalekites and Amorites. Then the 5 kings went out to fight against the 4 kings in the valley of Siddim. It was 4 kings against 5. The valley was full of tar pits, and when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah tried to escape, some of their men fell into them. The rest fled to the mountains. The 4 kings took all the goods and food from Sodom and Gomorrah and left. They also took Lot, Abram's nephew, and his possessions, because he was living in Sodom. Someone who escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew about this. Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre the Amorite, who was an ally of Abram, along with his brothers Eshcol and Aner. When Abram heard that his nephew had been captured, he called out his 318 trained men, born in his household, and chased the kings as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men into groups and attacked. He chased them all the way to Hobah, north of Damascus. He brought back all the stolen goods, his nephew Lot and his possessions, and all the women and other people. After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and his allies, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, and also called the King's Valley. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem and a priest of God Most High, brought out bread and wine. He blessed Abram, saying, "May God Most High, who made heaven and earth, bless Abram. Praise be to God Most High, who helped you defeat your enemies." Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people, but keep the goods for yourself." But Abram said to the king of Sodom, "I have made a promise to the Lord, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take anything belonging to you, not even a thread or a sandal strap. Then you can never say, 'I made Abram rich.' I will accept only what my young men have eaten, and the share that belongs to the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them have their share." Genesis chapter 15. After these events, God spoke to Abram in a vision, saying, "Don't be afraid, Abram. I am your protector and will give you a great reward." But Abram replied, "Lord God, what can you give me, since I still have no children? The one who will inherit my household is my servant Eliezer of Damascus." Abram continued, "You haven't given me any children, so a servant born in my household will be my heir." Then God spoke to him, saying, "No, this man will not be your heir. You will have a son of your own, and he will be your heir." God took Abram outside and said, "Look up at the sky and count the stars if you can." Then he said, descendants will be as numerous as these stars." Abram believed God, and God was pleased with Abram's faith. God also said, "I am the Lord who brought you from Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land as your own." Abram asked, "Lord God, how can I be sure that I will own this land?" God replied, "Bring me a 3-year-old cow, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon." Abram brought all these to God. He cut the animals in half and arranged the halves opposite each other, but he didn't cut the birds in half. When birds of prey came down to eat the carcasses, Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a deep and frightening darkness came over him. Then God said to Abram, "Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a foreign land. They will become slaves there and will be mistreated for 400 years. But I will punish the nation they serve, and afterward they will come out with many possessions. You will live to a good old age and die in peace. After 4 generations, your descendants will return here, because the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure." When the sun had set and darkness fell, a smoking firepot and a flaming torch passed between the pieces of the animals. On that day, God made a special promise to Abram, saying, "To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites." Genesis chapter 16. Sarai, Abram's wife, had not been able to have any children. She had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. Sarai said to Abram, "Since God has kept me from having children, please go and be with my servant. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Abram agreed to what Sarai suggested. After Abram had lived in Canaan for 10 years, Sarai took her Egyptian servant Hagar and gave her to Abram as a wife. Abram slept with Hagar, and she became pregnant. When Hagar knew she was expecting a baby, she began to look down on Sarai. Then Sarai said to Abram, "This is your fault. I gave my servant to you, and now that she's pregnant, she treats me with disrespect. Let God judge between you and me." Abram told Sarai, "Your servant is under your control. Do what you think is right with her." Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that Hagar ran away. An angel of God found Hagar near a spring in the desert on the road to Shur. The angel said, "Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from, and where are you going?" She answered, "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai." The angel told her, "Go back to your mistress and accept her authority." Then the angel added, "I will give you so many descendants that they will be too many to count." The angel also said, "You are going to have a son. Name him Ishmael, because God has heard about your suffering. He will be like a wild donkey, free-spirited and independent. He will live in conflict with others, yet he will live near all his relatives." Hagar gave a name to God who spoke to her. "You are the God who sees me." For she said, "I have now seen the one who sees me." That's why the well there was called Bir Lahai-Roi. It still stands between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave birth to Abram's son, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar gave birth to Ishmael. Genesis chapter 17. When Abram was 99 years old, God appeared to him and said, "I am God Almighty. Live in my presence and be blameless. I will make a special promise between us, and I will give you many descendants." Abram bowed low to the ground, and God continued, "This is my promise to you. You will be the father of many nations. You will no longer be called Abram. Your new name will be Abraham, which means father of many nations. I will make your family very large. Nations and kings will come from your family line. This promise will last forever between me and you and your descendants. I will be your God and the God of your descendants. I will give you and your descendants the whole land of Canaan, where you now live as a stranger. It will be yours forever, and I will be their God. Then God said to Abraham, you must keep your part of this promise, you and your descendants forever. Here is what you must do. Every male among you must be circumcised. This will be a physical sign of the promise between us. Every baby boy must be circumcised when he is 8 days old. This includes not only your own children, but also those born to servants in your household and those bought from foreigners. Whether born in your household or bought, they must be circumcised. This will be a lasting sign in your bodies of our eternal promise. Any male who is not circumcised will be separated from his people because he has broken my promise. God also said, your wife will no longer be called Sarai. Her new name will be Sarah. I will bless her and give you a son through her. She will become the mother of nations, and kings will come from her. Abraham fell face down and laughed to himself, thinking, can a 100-year-old man have a son? Can Sarah have a baby at 90? Then Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael could be blessed by you. But God said, no, Sarah will give you a son, and you will name him Isaac. I will establish my lasting promise with him and his descendants. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will bless him too. He will have many children and become a great nation. He will be the father of 12 princes. But my special promise will be with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you next year at this time. When God finished speaking, he left Abraham. That very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and every male in his household, including those born there and those bought from foreigners, and circumcised them as God had said. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised. His son Ishmael was 13 years old when he was circumcised. Abraham and Ishmael were both circumcised on that same day. Every male in Abraham's household, including those born there and those bought from foreigners, was circumcised with them. Genesis chapter 18. One hot day, the Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre. Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent. Looking up, Abraham saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, my Lord, if you are pleased with me, please stay a while with your servant. Let me bring some water so you can wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me also bring you some food to refresh you before you continue your journey. This is why you have come to your servant. They replied, yes, do as you have said. Abraham hurried into the tent and said to Sarah, quick, get 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make some bread. Then Abraham ran to his herd, chose a tender good calf, and had a servant quickly prepare it. He brought some butter, milk, and the prepared meat, and set it before his guests. He stood near them under the tree while they ate. They asked him, where is your wife Sarah? Abraham replied, she's in the tent. Then one said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son. Sarah was listening at the tent entrance behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were very old, and Sarah was past the age of having children. Sarah laughed to herself, thinking, now that I am old and worn out, will I really have this pleasure? And my husband is old too. The Lord asked Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child at my age? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she denied it, saying, "I didn't laugh." But he said, "Yes, you did laugh." The men got up to leave, looking toward Sodom. Abraham walked along with them. Then the Lord said, "Should I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations will be blessed through him. I have chosen him to teach his children and household to follow my ways by doing what is right and just, so that I will do what I have promised him." Then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very serious. I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the reports reaching me. If not, I will know." The men turned and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Abraham came closer and asked, "Will you sweep away both the righteous and the wicked? What if there are 50 good people in the city? Will you still destroy it instead of sparing it for the 50 good people there? Surely you wouldn't do that, destroying the good with the bad. Shouldn't the judge of all the earth do what is right?" The Lord said, "If I find 50 good people in Sodom, I will spare the whole city for their sake." Abraham spoke again humbly, saying, "I am only dust and ashes, but let me speak to the Lord. What if there are 45 good people? Will you destroy the city for lack of 5? The Lord said, "If I find 45 there, I will not destroy it." Abraham continued, "What if only 40 are found there?" He replied, "For 40, I will not destroy it." "Please don't be angry, Lord," Abraham said. "What if only 30 are found?" He answered, "If I find 30, I will not do it." Abraham said, "Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 are found?" He said, "For 20, I will not destroy it." Finally, Abraham said, "Please don't be angry, Lord, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there?" He answered, "For 10, I will not destroy it." When the Lord finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. Genesis chapter 19. 2 angels arrived in Sodom in the evening. Lot was sitting at the city gate, and when he saw them, he got up to welcome them, bowing low. He said, "Please, my lords, come to your servant's house. You can wash, spend the night, and continue your journey in the morning." They said, "No, we'll spend the night in the square." But Lot insisted strongly, so they went to his house. He prepared a meal for them with fresh bread, and they ate. Before bedtime, all the men of Sodom, young and old, from every part of the city, surrounded Lot's house. They called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so we can know them." Lot went outside, closing the door behind him, and said, "Please, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never been with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof." They shouted, "Stand back." Then they said, "This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to judge us. We'll treat you worse than them." They kept pressing hard against Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the angels reached out and pulled Lot back inside. Then they struck all the men outside with blindness, both young and old, so they couldn't find the door. The angel said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone else? Get them out of this place, because we are going to destroy it. The outcry against its people has has become so great before the Lord that he has sent us to destroy it." Lot went to speak to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, "Hurry, leave this city, because the Lord is about to destroy it." But they thought he was joking. At dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Quick, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will perish when the city is punished." When Lot hesitated, the angels grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful. As soon as they were outside, one said, "Run for your lives. Don't look back or stop anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, or you will die." But Lot said to them, "Please no, my lords. You have shown great kindness to me by saving my life, but I can't flee to the mountains. The disaster will overtake me, and I'll die. Look, here is a small town nearby. Let me flee there. It's very small, isn't it? Then my life will be saved." The angel replied, "Very well, I grant this request too. I will not destroy that town, but hurry there, because I cannot do anything until you reach it." That's why the town was called Zoar. The sun had risen when Lot reached Zoar. Then the Lord rained burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the heavens. He destroyed those cities and the entire plain, including all the inhabitants and everything growing on the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Early the next morning, Abraham went to where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah and saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham and brought Lot out of the disaster, then overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, living in a cave, because he was afraid to stay in Zoar. The older daughter said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there are no men around to give us children, as is the custom everywhere. Let's get our father to drink wine, and then sleep with him to preserve our family line through our father." That night they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and slept with him. He was unaware when she lay down or when she got up. The next day the older daughter said to the younger, "Last night I slept with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and sleep with him so we can preserve our family line through our father." So they got their father to drink wine that night also, and the younger daughter went and slept with him. Again he was unaware when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He became the father of Moabites. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ami. He became the father of the Ammonites. Genesis chapter 20. Abraham traveled from there to the Negev region and lived between Kadesh and Shur. While staying in Gerar, Abraham told people that his wife Sarah was his sister. So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream at night and said, "You are going to die because the woman you have taken is married." Now Abimelech had not gone near her. He said, "Lord, would you destroy an innocent nation? Didn't Abraham tell me she is my sister? And didn't she herself say, he is my brother? I did this with a clear conscience and clean hands." God said to him in a dream, "Yes, I know you did this with a clean conscience. That's why I kept you from sinning against me by not letting you touch her. Now return this man's wife because he is a prophet. He will pray for you, and you will live. But if you don't return her, know for certain that you and all yours will die." Early the next morning, Abimelech called all his officials and told them everything that had happened. They were very afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said, "What have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you would bring such guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should not be done." Abimelech also asked Abraham, "What was your reason for doing this?" Abraham replied, "I thought, there is no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, my father's daughter, though not my mother's, and she became my wife. When God had me leave my father's household, I said to her, 'This is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother.' Then Abimelech brought sheep, cattle, and male and female slaves, and gave them to Abraham. He also returned Sarah, his wife, to him. Abimelech said, 'My land is before you. Live wherever you like.' To Sarah he said, 'I am giving your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. This will clear your name before all who are with you. You are completely vindicated.' Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female slaves, so they could have children again. For the Lord had kept all the women in Abimelech's household from having children because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. In these chapters, we've seen God's promises to Abraham unfold in unexpected ways. We witnessed the confusion at Babel and how God chose one man, Abraham, to begin a new story. Through Abraham's journey, we see both his faith and his failures, from his willingness to leave his homeland at God's call, to his moments of doubt when he claimed Sarah was his sister. We've seen how God protected his plan, even when humans faltered, preserving Sarah in Egypt and Gerar, rescuing Lot from Sodom's destruction, and repeatedly promising Abraham a son despite his and Sarah's old age. Though Abraham and Sarah sometimes struggled to trust God's timing, God remained faithful to his promises. These stories show us that God works through imperfect people and difficult situations. Whether it's Abraham bargaining for Sodom, Lot escaping destruction, or Sarah laughing at God's promise, we see how God's larger plan moves forward even through human weakness and doubt. Next time, we'll see how God finally fulfills his promise of a son to Abraham and Sarah, changing